Hi, welcome back to my UI class. Last time we have discussed about how to compare different countries' stock prices by normalizing the price indices. Today, we would have some discussions on how to do the indexing of different price indices. First of all, if you haven't read my previous article or watched my video, then here I provide you the link to read them first. So it is about comparing different price indices. And this article, right, is a supplementary for explaining how to do the normalization by putting two indices to the same initial values at a certain point of time. That's what we call indexing. So today I would use the residential average rents and price in Hong Kong as a demonstration. So let me define indexing first. Indexing is an effective means of normalizing data to a common starting point and observing how variables change over time relative to each other. So comparing rent and price of housing in Hong Kong in particular, because the rating and valuation department provide the average rent and price, then I particularly use Class A residential properties on Hong Kong Island to compare in the past 5 years about their rate of change in rents and price. It's because people often claims that average property prices in Hong Kong have risen faster than rents. So today, this demonstration will try to answer these questions. Is it true? And how can we test it? Usually people would try to compare average rent and prices, say, for example, by calculating the growth rate in the past 3 months or in the past 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years in order to compare the growth rate, right? However, this approach does not allow a continuous comparison of two series. So I think a better way to compare them is trying to plot the two series visually, right? So that we can visualize the change over time of the two series continuously. And then we can compare each time, right? No matter it's 3 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right? Whatsoever, continuously in the period that you plot in the graph is much, much better than just reporting some designated period of time. But the question is, since the two series are of very different magnitudes, say, for example, rent and price, they would be of very different magnitudes, then a chart cannot compare on their changes, even if we can use a secondary vertical axis for one of the series, just like what I have done here. But still, here, say, for example, the left hand vertical axis refers to the average price. So the orange line, right, read the left vertical axis. Then in this period, the range is from 150,000 to about 200,000 Hong Kong dollars. While then the blue line refers to the average rent, read the right vertical axis. Then in the same period, it ranged from about $400 to 500 something per square meter per month. The question is, because the two vertical axes are of different range and different magnitude, so even though it looked like the orange line, the average price seems to be increasing much faster than that of the rent, but indeed, if we try to calculate their growth rates, you will find that before 2019, their growth rate seems to be quite similar. That's the problem, because they are not indexed. Then, without fixing an initial point, then it is hard to compare their rate of change. Now, we are trying to log at some starting point at a certain point in time, then we can compare them continuously. That the process is called indexing. It's very simple process. It's just a normalization process by using a proportion calculation. So here I prepare a table to explain what it is. So the first step is to fix the initial time as 100. Of course, someone would use 1 or 1000 as the initial figure, but it doesn't matter. Just fix certain point of time, right, to put the two series to become the same. Okay, so here, let me explain this chart, right? In 2015, from January to May, then the third column refers to the average rent from 407 to 424. And then the fourth column refers to the average price from 142,000 something to 147,000 something, right? So in order to compare these two columns, we index them by normalizing them. Say, for example, if we take the initial month to become 100 for both average rent and average price, then all the following figures will be able to be calculated proportionally. Let me explain that, say, if we would like to know about the index of average rent in May of 2015, right, this cell, then the calculation is 424, right, the rent in May divided by the fixed initial period average rent 407, that becomes the ratio, and then times 100, it becomes 104.18. Similarly, for the price index, then we divide the May average price divided by the fixed initial average price times 100, then it becomes 104.06. Okay, the formula is here, but simply calculate the ratio and then times the initial value, it becomes the index. So by means of this method, you can copy and paste so as to calculate the whole time series of the index. So let me show you why it is much better for comparison. Now, fixing the initial point to become 100 for both average price and average rent, then this chart using the same range and magnitude for both series, then you will find that indeed for mid-2019, their rate of growth are more or less the same, but then after that, their performance are widely different. Here, provide you some figures. Say, for example, right, if we take the recent peak in August 2019 as an example, the rental index was 130.96 and the price index was 138.57, right? These two figures are quite close. So the rent has increased by 30.96% and price has increased by 38.57%. So the advantages of using a price index is that you can immediately tell the growth rate by using the index to minus the initial value 100 in this example, right? So 130.96 minus 100 will immediately tell you that in this period, right, from January 2015 to August 2019, and the rent has increased by 30.96%. It helped to simplify the calculation of the growth rate relative to the initial fixed point. And then if we compare the recent lows in February 2016, here the chart, right, is the lowest point. And similarly, because the index was 87.93, then you can immediately tell that from January 2015 to February 2016, house price fell by 12.07%. This approach, by using a price index and rental index, make comparisons easier and clearer. That's the reason why indexing is very commonly used in economics and finance. So here, for example, if you use Google Finance to compare different performance of different stocks, here I also provide you an example. Indeed, they are also using indexing, but they are reporting the growth rate rather than reporting the index. So in other words, they had already minus 100 and report the growth rate. So let me show you an example in Google Finance. If you enter just one stock, then it will report its index. In this example, S&P 500 on November 29, it reports 4,655. That's the index. But once you click comparison, it allows you to compare with other stock. And here, example, I compare S&P 500 with Hang Seng Index, then it immediately converts into growth rate. So you will find the vertical axis becomes a percentage. And here the chart keeping the initial point to be the same, right? Now, because it minus 100, so the initial point become 0. And then you can immediately tell, right, within this period, then the S&P 500 has increased by 25.8%, but the Hang Seng Index had fallen by 13.18%. This is a kind of indexing by comparing their growth rate. Thank you. That's all for today.